Welcome. My name is Jim Karam. I'm a SCORE volunteer with Chapter 439 in Pasco and Hernando counties of Florida. We're about an hour north of Tampa on the West Coast. And I'm here today to conduct a seminar on the use of technology in small business. Technology itself seems to grow by leaps and bounds and has a variety of forms. But the question for any small business owner or manager has got to be, is this technology going to really help my business be more efficient, more profitable, or more effective? To develop answers to those questions, the SCORE Foundation got together with AT&T who gave us a grant to develop this material, of which you'll be an early reviewer. As such, we're going to first ask you to fill out a pre-training survey. So let's start with an overview. These are just some of the questions that small business managers ask SCORE mentors every day. Probably the most common one is, do I need a website? Or somebody told me I needed to be on Facebook. Or is it really true that for a small enough business I might be able to do bookkeeping myself? Or what's a CRM? Say it's customer relationship management. Well, is that going to help me make money? While this technology can in cases actually reduce your costs, more typically what it's primarily going to do for you is to provide you more oversight into your business operations. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to give you tools that will let you have a much wider reach to potential customers and clients than the resources you've probably been using to date. But we'd like to make a couple of other avoiding points. First of all, we're not the least bit interested in technology for technology's sake. So the real question is going to be always, how does this help your business? And the second thing we'd like to remind you is that your business is to help your customers. And it's not to answer a Twitter feed every 2 minutes. So stay focused on your business, not on the technology. I'm not going to read these common technology myths back to you. You can read them just as well as I. But I will focus on a couple of points. First, you can always afford this technology. There are free versions of almost everything. And the other point is technology can, in fact, get you paid. As but one example of a technology tool is a so-called aging report, which lets you focus on the people that either owe you the most money or who have owed it to you the longest. So you can let that famous 90-10 rule work for you. That is, you'll get 90% of the result with 10% of the effort if you know how to prioritize, and this technology is going to do that prioritization for you. As we've already stressed a couple of times, this process of evaluating technology has got to first start with just what are your issues? What are your opportunities? What are your problems in your business? Now, to aid in that regard, there's actually some associated written material that complements this presentation. One, there is a workbook, it's 30 some odd multicolor pages, very slick, very professional, particularly helpful if you're more the person that wants something to refer to textually after the fact instead of listening to all this talky talk. And the other is a set of 40 pages worth of 1 or 2 page handouts that focus on specific technology topics as they might apply. Now, in fact, the first 2 of those handouts are something called SWOT analysis and another business assessment tool called business process mapping. Now, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And a lot of people have found that effective in just analyzing what is their current situation. But we're going to start with an example of a business process map. Remember, we're not going to start with technologies and then work our way backwards to try to figure out what problem it might solve. Instead, you always want to start with what are your goals or issues. As an example, one goal might be to broaden my customer base. And then you want to work your way forward to say, all right, what are some results that I might try to achieve in order to reach that goal? You could increase the visibility of your brand. You could try to grow market share. You could try to increase sales. And then with those in mind, you can then start trying to identify solutions. Launch a website. Use social media. Find some e-commerce tool that can make it easier for you to accept payments, and so on. Much of the technology that we're going to be talking about primarily relates to the task of marketing, who has the goal of typically finding customers, creating brand awareness, and so on. But the real problem is, will you be where your customers are looking? So, who are your customers? Well, first, the majority of your customers are going to have come into their adulthood since the 80s and beyond. This so-called Generation X, Y, and Z are very well educated and are very strong users of technology. But probably most notably, they are immune to traditional marketing and sales techniques. They don't care one iota about what a business says about the quality and effectiveness of their goods and services. They want to know what their peers say about that business's goods and services. Everybody has heard how much the readership of newspapers has declined over the years, but I doubt most people really understand how extensive it has been. Here's data showing that 2/3 of those in the U.S. under 45 did not read a newspaper yesterday. Now what that means is that you've got to go find these people wherever they are, and where they are is on the internet. So with that as a background, let's talk about what we're going to be discussing specifically. First, we're going to be addressing websites and their use to provide a web presence, provide you some insights into your customers' interests and needs, and then actually provide how to use paid advertising to drive those customers once you understand their interests and needs to your site. And then we'll move into what most people would call nowadays e-marketing, but start with what some people would consider mundane but actually very critical to many small businesses. That's the so-called local search engines, or so-called yellow page sites. Then we'll talk about using email newsletters and the like to particularly stay in touch with your existing customer base. Then we'll move on to the kind of popular social media of the day, the Facebooks and Twitters and the so on of this world. And then another e-marketing tool that some people have found effective is blogs. Then we'll move into technology of various forms that can help you from a financial standpoint. First, by collecting payments. Second, performing what most people classically would call bookkeeping. And then going beyond that into some operational aids like pricing and inventory and payroll.